Okay.
Okay, the meeting's going to be called to order by me, Lawrence Stone, at 5:43 today. And it's nice when we can start these meetings on time. Let's have a roll call. Frank Cabello, absent. Ben Lipley,
Here.
present. David Russell, present. Lewis Pollock,
Here.
present. Stephen Day, absent. Cynthia Conroy,
Here.
present. Monica Patience, absent. And Jesus Yarrow, present. And now we can start the meeting with the call to the public. If there's anyone here that
I don't
wants
see
to,
anybody that's waiting.
I beg your pardon, Jesus?
I don't see anybody that's waiting. They would.
Okay, right, all right. So just I think it's a formality to have the call to the public. And then we are going to move on to approve the minutes of the regular session of the Streets and Infrastructure Committee meeting that we held on March 25th, 2021. Can someone second that motion that we approve the minutes?
I second.
You need to have a motion first.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular session of the Streets and Infrastructure Committee meeting held on March 25th, 2021.
I
Perfect.
second.
Okay.
All right, and then the agenda here. Let's have a vote. Let's have a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those not wishing to approve the agenda, not the meeting of March 25th, 2021, say nay. The minutes are hereby approved of the meeting of March 25th, 2021. The agenda appears today under the heading of old business, but that's actually the new business. I hope that doesn't interfere with us doing our business today. One piece of old business that I wanted to bring up, Jesus, I thought you had told us that it wouldn't be much of a work to put that crosswalk in from the City of Bisbee public parking as you come into town there, Naco Road, from the Naco Road parking lot across Naco Road to the ramp that goes up onto the sidewalk there. I was thinking maybe we were going to get a crosswalk striped in there.
It's not on our agenda, but I will tell you, I will look at it.
I was thinking,
If I may, the Pride Committee, from what I understand, has somebody who's willing to donate the paints to make that crosswalk rainbow colored. I'm not sure if they've yet reached out to Jesus yet, but I know that was in the works of something that they had mentioned.
Again, it's not on our agenda, and I have not heard from them at all. I will say that regular paint is not what I would what I won't allow. Regular paint. It has to be traffic paint, either traffic paint or thermoplastic.
this was a piece of old business from our March 25th meeting. Whose minutes we just approved.
Sure. Again, yeah.
We had discussed it at that time, and I thought we had been all in agreement that that would be a small item that could be executed. So all right, moving right along. The discussion of the hydrology study report on Tombstone Canyon Road there. Have we got more information about the study that we ordered a month ago?
Sure. So the update on that is that the survey was completed, I believe, 2 weeks ago. The initial or the existing, so the pavement as it exists now, was being analyzed this week. So once they uploaded the survey information, they will analyze the data this week. For the next 2 weeks, they will be analyzing the overlay condition, and at that point they'll be able to compare the two, both post and pre overlay conditions, and give us a determination if there was a 10% change. That 10%, that 10% threshold comes from Cochise County. So if there was a more than 10% change, then give us a recommendation on how to return it to within 10%.
I tuned into our city council meeting on Tuesday, and I was under the impression that we were going to have those recommendations by the end of this week.
No, sorry.
You didn't say that at the city council meeting?
I did not. I said that they would be analyzing the existing condition this week and then the pre-overlay condition the following 2 weeks.
Louis, was that your understanding from the city council meeting?
Yes, I believe that's what he said.
Okay, I must have misunderstood. Then I don't see that there's much else to discuss there since we don't have any additional information.
I will add to this because this report will probably be completed before our next meeting. I will definitely share that with you all as well as the city council. At that point, it might be a good idea for us to have a special session of the streets and infrastructure to discuss that all together. I would recommend that. So if you all feel that's appropriate, when it comes time to do that, we can try to schedule something.
Okay, well then we're going to move on to the discussion and possible recommendation of Route 80 lighting. As you may know, I've been working on that since before Christmas. And I did hear from the Arizona Department of Transportation that they have now submitted a request for a new lighting system in the tunnel as going to be paid for out of a safety highway safety project improvement basket in which they enter all of these types of improvements that ADOT needs to make. And no time can be given when that will be completed, but at least the proposal is in the highway safety improvement basket. Also, regarding the lighting around the pit, Arizona Department of Transportation has told me that they do not know who owns the lights around the pit, and Freeport-McMoRan does not know who owns the lights around the pit, and the ownership of the lighting is immaterial. The city of Bisbee, they say, is the agency that would have to turn the lights on, be responsible for turning the lights on. And so I suggest that we recommend that the lights around the pit on Route 80 be turned back on by the city of Bisbee. Street lights are a public good, and public goods have certain economic characteristics. And one of them is that after you turn the lights on, the marginal cost for lighting the road is zero. After the lights are turned on, each additional driver that takes advantage of the road there's no marginal cost to one more driver using the road after the lights are lit. And public goods also are characterized by usually a large initial cost that makes it impossible for an individual citizen to get the lights lit. And so, you know, when I voted for the 1% sales tax, I wasn't thinking that we were going to have fewer street lights. And I was going to ask Stephen Day what the, you know, how much the ballot measure passed by in 2015. You know, I don't think it was more than a couple or a few hundred votes. And the recent survey of the safety and the lighting around Route 80 that was revealed by the people that wanted to put in a a bicycle, a shared bicycle and a pedestrian path. Lighting was seen as the number one issue that people thought was most unsafe. And there was about 100 people that were responded to that, saying that they also agreed that the lighting should be fixed. And I'd be happy to address the city council. Lou, I was going to ask you about that. The city council seems to think that it's okay to leave the lights off.
That was the majority opinion the last time we dealt with this issue, and mainly it was because of the fact we didn't own the property and we didn't own the lighting system. My no problem with this. We have an ordinance that deals with dark skies, and right now that would be in conflict with that ordinance. Number two, I, as a council person in Ward 3, am opposed to any spending of taxpayer money that cannot be justified. And I don't see this as a justifiable expense. So as a council person, I will be against it.
And if we're taking opinions from everyone, I said this before, it's a state highway, therefore there should either be funds from the state, but since you're getting a runaround, Mr. Stone, from the typical one you get of nobody owns it. I tried to pave a piece of pavement for 10 years next to the courthouse. And I got, it doesn't belong to the city. It doesn't belong to Freeport. It doesn't belong to the county. And every different agency would point the finger at the other agency. And it took until Mr. Jesus came here with his map. That now we know the property actually belongs to the county, but the problem is the county won't claim it. But the point is that paving or lights, when you go into these kind of projects, you've got to realize that everybody has a different opinion. And so the question becomes who owns it. And as Mr. Pollock just said, it's like, why would we spend Bisbee's limited funds for people to drive on a state highway where we have no control of the hundreds of thousands of them that do that all during the year, and we don't get a dime from it? And overlay on that is this new project that a lot of citizens of Bisbee that you just referred to, the bike pathway project, that's also going to be like a 5 to 10 year project. I know, I've lived here long enough. That will involve lighting, but it'll also involve a bunch of different agencies that none of us on streets and infrastructure have any input or concern to. So if you want to keep beating that dead horse, I'll just tell you that it has been visited by the council. It's been rejected by the current seated mayor and council. And I don't know that I on streets and infrastructure want to support making an issue out of something that we already know is a losing issue, because I prefer to be on the winning side of things when we try to get them done, like some of these other more important things that are on this list. That's just my opinion. So I'm sort of against it too, just as a new person who is pretty practical about what's going to happen when you go down these kind of rabbit holes. Just my 2 cents too.
That's fine. I'm not attached to any particular outcome. Hey, Jesus, do you think you could get this thing that says this meeting is being recorded to disappear from the middle of the screen?
I think it's probably your screen. Mine just shows it up on the top left.
Okay, all right, let me see here. Oh, there we go. I got it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, so, I'm not attached to the outcome. I will say this. The 1% sales tax that's funding half of the streets and infrastructure improvements in town here is a ballot measure. And the people of Bisbee have got to vote to renew the ballot measure. And sometimes when you take a high visibility thing like the lighting around Route 80 or paving a parking lot, you can point to something and say, this is what we did with the money. And when the day comes that we need to, get the voters to reapprove the 1% sales tax, it may be that these are the types of projects that the voters would, think about voting for a second time. But, if you all have your finger on the pulse of Bisbee better than I do, you know, like I say, I'm not attached to the outcome. I do think it's a safety issue. I do think the lights ought to be lit. And, but if we're not unanimous in our recommendation, you know, I certainly can move on to some other topic.
I would support having those lights turned back on. I think there is a lot of commentary in support of doing that, especially now that people have experienced what it's like with them off. And also we've had a couple deaths and injuries with pedestrians and bicyclists on that in that area. So, you know, I think there is support for it. And I also would say the support is not necessarily from Old Bisbee, but it's from other areas as well too. So.
Well, I just wanted to let you know I had certainly done my due diligence on the topic, and that's just the way it sits. All right, moving on to discussion and possible recommendation on Walsh Avenue parking and signage.
Mr. Stone, really
yes.
quick, on this, you did have discussion and possible recommendation. You can let this topic die for lack of motion, or you can actually make the motion and let people vote, however you all want to do that.
Well, I'm a little bit curious about about the wording of the agenda. The agenda that I submitted had the verb voting on it, and the word voting has been replaced by the word recommendation.
Sure, and so the reason for that is because this committee can't make any decisions. They can only make recommendations to the city council. So if you vote to make a recommendation, I am then at that point obligated to take that to city council, which I have done in the past with the paving of Walsh, and say that, you know, the Streets and Infrastructure Committee has voted to, let's just say, for example, it voted and it did pass. I would take it and then say that they recommend that we turn the lights back on. I would do it with a little bit more report than that, but it's completely up to you. This is a voting topic, and you all can choose to make a motion and vote, or you all can let it die for lack of motion.
I would suggest to the chair that we should probably table this until the next meeting when we have more attendance.
I'd like to table that until our next meeting also as well.
Okay, you can also make that motion and then vote on that. We can do that.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this discussion and possible recommendation for Route 80 lighting until our next meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say the ayes have tabled the motion until our next meeting.
Great, thank you.
All right, so the third item is discussion and possible recommendation on Walsh Avenue parking and signage. Cynthia, I thought you were in favor of that. And I thought, yeah.
Yeah, we did. So what happened is this is a vote and recommendation that you all made. I did take that to city council, and city council decided to send this back to the Streets and Infrastructure Committee. Mr. Pollock, I don't recall exactly what the city council was looking for.
To tell you the truth, I don't either. They were objecting to the need to pave that piece.
The need for it.
Right.
I know that there was some concern that was there an actual need for it. The parking lot, if I recall correctly, I believe that they felt that the dirt parking lot served its purpose, and they didn't know that there was a need for that to actually be paved. So now it comes back to you to either make some sort of improvement to, I don't know how to say that, but maybe give some more justification to it so that we can take that to council with some more justification. At this point, it's up to this committee to either, yeah, like I said, make the recommendation again with some justification behind it.
I was under the impression that everybody in Bisbee, I mean, except possibly the city council, was in favor of increasing the number of parking spaces in town.
Well,
Go ahead, Ben.
I could speak to this a little bit as Jesus Haro and I. I'll speak for myself, but there is a contingent of people in Old Bisbee that are fairly anti-tourist and anti-tourism, particularly Airbnb, and I believe this might have struck a chord with them. In that there might be a fear that we'd be taking parking from residents because tourists would know it was there. I don't agree with that sentiment, but I think that's what was a concern that was possibly brought up to the two council people. So I would consider possibly maybe just flattening the lot and doing gravel or something like that. I don't know. But I believe that's the sentiment that was expressed.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay, so Ben is correct. And I've lived here a lot longer than maybe some of you. For 35 years, there have always been, and some of us are the terrible villains who somehow got blamed for bringing tourists to town. But however, Mr. Stone is correct that there are a number of citizens and homeowners, by God, who pay taxes who want more parking. So you'll always hear the debate of, we want more parking, we want it for the residents, we want less parking because we don't want any tourists to come to town. So whatever anybody makes of that argument, here's the simple fact. The city of Bisbee owns property. The city of Bisbee owns the parking lots. But any residents who believes, including those on the council, that the people who park their cars there, be they tourists or residents, own the parking lot, need to learn that the city and the streets and infrastructure, which serves the city because we are the citizens that take all the opinions, our own and everybody else's that we hear from, and make a cohesive policy. Now, I thought last time this group and was really for recognizing that limited parking and property owned by the city, which is an asset to the city, could not only be improved, paved, leveled, graveled, whatever you do with it, but it could even be put signage up there so that people do understand who owns the property. I hate the city of Bisbee because the signage that's there now is ridiculous. It says it's 48-hour parking, whatever that means, and everybody knows it's not reinforced, and nobody really knows if the city owns it or the people who park their cars there. So to me, we should be very exacting in what we recommend. So I will at some time make a motion after everybody discusses it, so we know we're going in the same or different directions. You can't make a policy based on the problems. You make a recommendation. I mean, you make a recommendation based on making things better. So the parking lot, as it has been for the 35 years that I have observed it, has been mostly weeds, and until BVI paid $250 to cut those weeds, there were only 3 cars parking there. We cut the weeds 2 months ago. There have been 6 and 7 cars parked in there. So obviously attention to this parking lot will be a benefit for the residents. In fact, the very residents who are probably objecting to us doing anything to it, but that's a moot point. Problem number 2 is that there is a bus that is occupying the upper level of this parking lot. You can't really level it because it's got quite a grade to it. The upper level of the parking lot, the second or first parking lot, depending on how you want to describe it, the smaller parking lot has been occupied exclusively by Mr. Fred, or whatever his name is, a bus, an old hippie bus. And that old hippie bus sits in the middle of that lot and feeds feral cats. And the feral cat people, I talked to Gilligan, she's against him using his bus to give homes to feral cats. So we'd actually probably have that group of citizens who are very active on their whatever you call it, digital life. So to me, this problem is one where this is the committee, because Cynthia Conroy is tired of being blasted by everybody. Jesus probably is too. This committee, if they continued the tact we took before and made a recommendation that the bus needs to be relocated, and I personally think that the bus could be either removed completely or could be put parallel to the wall that's there, since it does not run, and the man could continue to get the benefit of using city property as his own property. I mean, I could care less. I just want the bus out of the middle of the space so that nobody else can park there, including residents. I mean, it's just a joke to me, to those of us who pay taxes and are concerned with the parking problem. It's a joke to let one person occupy an entire parking lot and to actually receive that criticism from him and people like him through the mayor and council, that Walsh Avenue is fine just the way it is, because it's not even close to fine. And it's a huge economic asset that I think we should figure out how to help the city promote and develop it. That's my opinion.
I have
'Cause that
another
one guy-
issue with the
That
bus.
one guy, it's not his lot. It's not the 3 other people that park in the other place. It's not their lot. I'm paying taxes for it. It's as much mine.
I mean,
park
there's
where I want.
literally people living in that lot.
I have another issue with the bus. The registration has expired several years ago. And I believe the law is that you cannot park an unregistered or a vehicle with an expired registration on a city street or city property.
Right. I mean, that bus is a health problem. It's a feral cat problem. It's a, I want to live in my bus problem. It's a, I've been here 10 years and you're not going to move me problem. I think it's really simple. We
Exactly.
request that the city, through Jesus, notify the guy, you move it or we will move it. And I'll tell you right now, out of health and education, and because the Bisbee 1000 is going to be there, and I'm trying to improve that whole area, because that's what I do when I invite 1,500 strangers to a town, I clean it up. I've been taking trash out of this town for years. BVI could probably pay to have it removed, and he could find a place for it. That's what I think we need to do, something where we help the guy, but we help ourselves. And this committee needs to figure out how to do that so that no one of us gets the brunt of a decision that will be unpopular with a small vocal group of people, but will be equally popular with a much larger and also equally vocal group of people, because I'll get the Friends of the Animal people, Gilligan and Talbot, to get on this one if we need to stir up the pot of the digital soup, which I never read, by the way.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say something.
Certainly, Mr. Pollak.
At the council meeting, when we dealt with this issue, there was no mention at all of this bus, which is, in my mind right now, the real crux of the problem here, not whether or not this piece of property gets paved. I think you have an issue here. It's an enforcement issue. I think something needs to be done about it, but wherever you go and what recommendation you make is up to you.
Well, I'd like to just put in a point, if I may, that the DRB and also planning and zoning have both had a lot of conversations about travel trailers, RVs, and people parking these large vehicles, specifically in Old Bisbee, with or without a permit, whether or not a permit is needed. So I believe, coming out of those conversations, that it's pretty much an enforcement issue, and enforcement could either come through zoning via Joe Ward or the police via the police chief. So.
Right, but, well, go ahead.
Just to answer Mr. Lepley, the Planning and Zoning Commission has asked me to bring that issue before the council as an agenda item, which I intend to do. And it deals with enforcement, and it deals with the illegal parking of unregistered vehicles everywhere in Bisbee. So we're moving forward on that issue as a separate committee.
Right, but if as streets and infrastructure, we could go back to this agenda item, and it's actually discussion and possible recommendations on parking and signage. So Walsh Avenue are the last 2 lots, paved or unpaved, that represent an asset to the city, and nobody wants to or can solve the problem of how to make it make money. Now, over in Tombstone, they have lots of solutions. We could copy them. I suggested before I can't remember, didn't we have the idea of a donation box, and didn't somebody had a really good idea that I can't now remember I think streets and infrastructure, back to the point that somebody made earlier, we really owe it to the city to help them do. And I think we brought it back to council with a clear consensus, if this group has that we want the parking lots as parking lots for the citizens and a few tourists. And we can't do that until signage, until someone enforces the removal of that bus. Because if we get tied into the bigger issue of what the council is going to do about every unregistered vehicle, we'll never see this bus moved. So if we just focus as infrastructure with parking lots and get that bus removed, we may help the larger issue. And so it's kind of like start with a little plain and clear. Can we make a motion that I guess I would make a motion that we recommend again to the mayor and council that we believe that the Walsh Avenue parking lot asset needs to be developed. Therefore, unregistered cars need to be removed within 30 days of the date the council acts. And then we'll worry about other things to do with it, like clean it and pave it. And you know what I'm saying? Maybe we could just claim that it's an asset, get them to claim their asset.
I have a larger concern about the topics of developing the unpaved parking lots in Bisbee. And my concern is that if they were to be paved and striped, I believe that there would probably be 10 or 20 extra parking spaces, lined, than just allowing people to drive in there and park any which way. And so I see it as all of these parking lot discussions as being paving parking lots, as being and developing parking lots, as being a way of increasing the number of parking spaces that are available in Bisbee. And over time, the parking spaces in Bisbee tend to become fewer and fewer. When they reorganized the parking spaces in front of Dr. Long's dentistry office, we lost 3 or 4 parking spaces. And when they allowed the street cafe of the Bisbee Social Club, that was another 3 or 4 parking spaces. If they go ahead in the future and approve the shared bicycle path pedestrian lane that's going to involve the parking on Naco Road, that'll be another 3 or 4 parking spaces. And you reduce you're starting at about 170 parking spaces, and 3 or 4 here and 3 or 4 there and 3 or 4, pretty soon there's going to be not enough places to park. And some people would say that maybe for events, there are already not enough places to park. And so I would like to look at the paving and striping and regulating of the parking lots as being a way to increase the number of parking spaces in Bisbee. And again, when the ballot issue comes and they say, what have you done with your money, with our money, it would be nice to be able to point to a parking lot and go, well, there's 10 extra parking spaces that we didn't have 5 years ago. But, this is just my personal opinion. And so because I'm surprised that the city council didn't want to proceed with developing the Walsh Avenue parking lot, I imagine they're not going to be any more in favor of developing the Opera Drive parking lot or the Higgins Hill parking lot. And I think that we may have to choose which of those projects we see as being more important. Having said that, I'd like to say that I believe that in the next 8 or 9 years, there will probably be 30 parking recharge stations in Bisbee for people with electric cars to come and recharge their electric cars while they're visiting Bisbee. And I just don't see that happening in a dirt parking lot. And so, yeah, Cynthia?
Well, so I think, because I agree with you, and I guess we, maybe I made my motion prematurely, we should figure out the language. I think we should take back to them, because right now with KENG, and I believe Jesus, so maybe you can remind me, but roughly if the bus was out of the spot up above, and even, and you were to pave and line that spot where the bus is, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's almost 10 parking spots in the upper level one. And in the lower level one, once we redesigned it a little bit and took the 12 by 12 pieces of wood that somebody put in there 25 years ago, which are blocking parking places rather than creating them, you would fit about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Together, there are a minimum of 20 parking spots on those two lots, period. 20 spots. And that's a minimum, because, the question is whether you make them 9 feet wide or you sneak in 8 foot wide, because Jesus and I've been through this. I think we could sneak in the 8 foot ones. I think we could do a lot of things that would promote solutions for people so they don't feel like they have to fight it out online, like residents parking stickers, where we could generate income. And so it's $1 a month. You're a resident. Your dollar fee is actually covering a cute little sticker that you get to put on your car like they do in Naples and feel like you're part of the Bisbee Parking Club. I mean, that's just one idea. There's lots of ways. But if we don't create and commit to parking, like you're saying, Mr. Stone, as the streets and infrastructure, if we can't commit to parking, why exactly are you on streets and infrastructure? Because to me, parking and streets are the main topic that we got going here. I'm on police and fire. It would be really funny if on police and fire, we started talking about the pool. The pool might be a part of the streets and infrastructure, but it's not part of police and fire. So I think parking is in Walsh Avenue. Why it's the easiest is because we have a nonprofit that's willing to work with a company, KENG, that's willing to work with the city of Bisbee and get a much cheaper paving job done than if the city had to do it by themselves. But we can't do it without permission of the mayor and council and this group, because I'm not going to stick my neck out alone, and neither is Jesus. So if somebody could make a motion saying that we want the mayor and council to take this asset back and consider in the future paving it, and in the future making it earn income, or at least serving the citizens, well, then I think we might have a winner here. I don't know why nobody seems to know why they objected. My understanding is they objected because the bus and not wanting to mess with old hippies was the issue, and I think that's ridiculous.
Was that the issue,
Finding
Mr.
ourselves
Pollard?
as a town.
It was not even mentioned during the discussions at the council.
But
That's right. I didn't love it until tonight.
I heard that they said, go back and talk to the citizens around the area. That's what I heard, that it's somehow the citizen, Jesus is nodding his head, the citizens in the area, Gretchen Bear, Mr. Fred, or whatever his name is, no telling who else. I know who owns some of those properties up there, and they're absentee landowners. But anyway, the point is that there's at least Gretchen Bear and one other guy and that guy. And if you talk to those citizens, I don't know, since when do 3 people have a say of how the city's going to use its assets?
The objections on the council were nebulous at best. They were not specific. I could not determine why they objected.
Right. They were nebulous, as in, go back and ask the citizens. Well, I'm a citizen and I'm on a committee, and I'm saying that this committee, as a group of however many citizens we can make a motion as streets and infrastructure that Walsh Avenue be recommended for parking and signage, and that anything that interferes with parking and signage should be removed. And that would mean that bus. I mean, don't focus on the bus, focus on the commitment to parking and signage, that we as an infrastructure want to see the city and the city mayor and council support parking, paving of parking and signage, as Mr. Stone was saying, right? I mean,
So it was the strongest argument I've heard tonight. And that is that paving the lot would give you additional parking spaces.
25.
In my opinion, that is the tactic that you should take. Approach it from that direction.
So I make a motion that we recommend to the city council that Walsh Avenue, when paved, would create an additional minimum of 20 spots. And we'd like to see the mayor and council support our recommendation or something like that, however you say that. Is that,
I second the motion.
you want to clean that up? Somebody want to clean up?
I
the-
thought that was a good motion. Anybody have a problem with the way the motion was phrased? I second the motion that we pave or recommend the paving of Walsh Avenue parking lot to increase the number of parking spaces and signage to make the parking spaces findable by the people in Bisbee and our visitors that may not be aware that the parking lot even exists.
So cleaning it up, can we just say, come on, somebody, who's a motion expert? I'm really terrible at motions. Maybe we should, I mean,
I can,
I guess we have to, you kind of changed the motion a little bit there. So we have to have, I guess, my first
Let's have a
motion.
new motion.
well, I would just suggest for a new motion, I wouldn't necessarily make a motion to pave because some people are really budget conscious, but definitely improve and definitely get those 20 spots. Sorry, it's windy.
Yeah,
That's
I
just
think
my
if we,
comment.
along with you, make the recommendation to claim and develop, how we developed it to reach our goal of maximizing the amount of parking spaces or areas can be further discussed, but just developing it, as a whole.
Right, so how about making a motion that the mayor and council would support Public Works developing Walsh Avenue for additional parking spots up to, as I like to say, 20, for additional parking spots. It will, if Public Works develops this, so my motion is our motion is that we recommend to mayor and council to direct Public Works to develop additional parking at the Walsh Avenue lots. That's pretty clear. Did everybody get that?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, good.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. We'd like to recommend the development of the Walsh Avenue parking lot and signage to increase the number of parking spaces in Bisbee.
That's right. And like you say, we don't care whether it's paved or not. That was a good suggestion by Benjamin, and focusing on increased parking. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
I will take that recommendation to city council. It will probably be on the June 15th agenda. I would suggest that maybe I work with one of you all so that we can get a good council action form with a nice report with a good recommendation from you all. And I would also recommend that one of you be there to help present that council action form to the city council, so you all can express your desire. I think it's a strong desire that you all feel, and I think it would be helpful.
Well, I would like to suggest that I will work with you, and then I would like to suggest that Mr. Stone, as chairman, be the person there to speak to the council. That would be my suggestion.
I'd be happy to attend the meeting, although you are very eloquent, Cynthia.
No,
you know,
people hate
and-
listening to me and I talk too much.
But we'll find somebody from the
Okay.
committee to be present at that city council.
David is really good with public presentations. If you don't want to do it, Larry, David's excellent at that. He's short and to the,
Well, David, you have a lot of parking lot experience.
yes, and he's a
I
parking.
do. I certainly wouldn't mind.
There you
There
go.
you go. I think we have our man.
Okay, I'll work with you all, and then we'll move forward.
Okay, good. Yay. I just want to see that rat trap gone.
Well, I just did have one other question about I was interested in the figure of $20,000 cost to.
Sure.
Now, I know we're not recommending paving, we're just recommending developing the parking lot to make more parking spaces. But how many square feet did you think that parking lot was, Jesus, when you said it was going to cost $20,000 to pave?
I don't recall exactly. What I did was I took the square footage from Google Earth, and then that's a good estimate. And then I multiplied it by our cost to pave. That gave us a cost, and then I added some engineering, an estimate for engineering. If we do pave that, I did make I did state to council that I would not feel comfortable paving a parking lot without engineering. It's something that I feel that because we're creating an impermeable surface, that we need to make sure that we're addressing that additional runoff that could possibly be created.
Yeah, as a tree hugger myself, I'd prefer gravel, just so the surrounding trees can enjoy the water. And we'd probably eliminate the engineering and still get our 20 spots. But that's just my tree hugger opinion.
Yeah, but I do think getting away from worrying about paving it and just getting it developed is the great way to go, with more
Alright.
spots, and then worry about what we can do. I mean, they make gravel, they make stuff that it still takes in the water, but turns kind of hard so that, you know, it won't have charging stations there, because those people usually like pavement underneath their little Priuses, but we'll see what happens, you know. I think that's I think we've made a good decision, so we'll move away from paving, but for now, you know.
We'll work together, put a good council action form together.
Okay, that'd be great.
And that brings us to item number 4, discussion and possible recommendation on Opera Drive parking, paving, and signage.
Well, to go
As
with
I
this point.
said previously, it seemed to me that the city council was not going to endorse all of our paving and parking desires. And I think we may have to kind of pick, I feel differently about paving the Higgins Hill parking lot than I do about the Opera Drive and the Walsh Avenue parking lot. And if we just want to come up with a similar motion to develop the Opera Drive parking lot and signage and for more parking spaces, I think that's the way to go with Opera Drive as well, while we're working on Walsh Avenue. And when I say working on, I mean developing motions. I think that we could come up with a similar motion perhaps for the Opera Drive parking and signage as we did for the Walsh Avenue parking and signage.
Or we could just leave Opera Drive alone and just take the one to them so that they don't get overwhelmed with their decisions that they have to make, and focus on the one that has the most.
I agree. I thought this was going to be kind of a popular topic, but I see that it's not. And so if you would like to make a motion to table this for a later time, or just let this, I feel kind of strongly about the Opera Drive parking the same way that you feel about the Walsh Avenue parking.
Yeah.
There are unregistered vehicles that are parked there. And I don't know why there hasn't been any enforcement of I don't know whether it's a city law or a county law that says you cannot park an unregistered vehicle on on a city property. I'm mystified about that. Do you have any answer about that, Mr. Pollock?
We went through this with Lowell and all the unregistered vehicles that were parked in front of all the businesses there. They have since been registered and they're legal now. That's a big issue.
Uh-huh.
And you're right about that. That's an enforcement issue.
Uh-huh.
And our previous city manager handled that well, I thought.
And 2 before her. This is a continuing raise its ugly head, chop it off, goes away, raise its ugly head, chop it off. I mean, it's just one of those things. And so now they're condensed down to Walsh and Opera and not spread throughout all of Old Bisbee as far as I can tell. And so I think that it'll be an easy thing. But I'm just thinking maybe we could hold Opera Drive and let them go with the undeck. We could take each one as it comes up. And since Opera Drive is not overcrowded, so to speak, like Walsh Avenue actually is, it doesn't have any major offending elements to it other than a few little cars hidden here and there. In fact, just since we started working on Walsh, one of the unregistered little Volkswagens that's been there for 10 years or 5 years, it disappeared. So we got we've really only got one, as far as I can tell, large bus left where the citizen is just challenging the city. So I don't know. It just seems like we could make the same recommendation. You're right. If you feel strongly, make the same recommendation for Opera, or we can hold Opera till we see how we succeed with Walsh. Because we don't see, it's kind of like they see two of them coming, they decide to say no to both of them. They only see one coming, they might entertain it a little longer. I mean, not just them, meaning the council. Everybody does that. It's kind of like, ooh, that's too much. Let me just have nothing to do with that. It's just human nature. Sort of to run and hide.
I agree with that strategy.
Just doing one, right, Ben?
Would you like to make a proposal, Ben, if you're still there?
I'd like to propose to table Walsh Avenue till next meeting.
No, table.
Oh, sorry, table Opera till next meeting.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
All opposed? The ayes have it again. So we're going to table the discussion and recommendation of developing the Opera Drive parking and signage until our next meeting.
Thank you.
Brings us to our final discussion and possible recommendation of an engineering study for Higgins Hill parking and signage. Yes,
Higgins Hill parking, did we talk about that last time, or is this new?
we talked about it last time, and we were going to put it on the agenda tonight for a possible recommendation of an engineering study.
So by Higgins Hill, we mean the area behind the pool, to the north of the pool, that great big area that the city owns, correct? Is that
Correct, that's what we're talking about.
It could hold literally, Ken Budge did a study with somebody, an unofficial one before he was mayor. 100 cars could go into that lot up there, and we could shuttle them with David's business. 100 cars could go into that parking lot up there. Means they have to dig the dirt out a little bit and build one little wall or something. And again, it would probably be something you'd want to leave unpaved at first, in which case it probably would only hold 80 cars. But the point is, it's a big space. So, I mean, a lot of people don't even know it's there.
I see it as a natural place to park as you enter the town from the top of the canyon. You go right up there where the Iron Man is, and I don't have to tell you, we're all familiar with it, but it's the largest of the three parking lots. And I feel strongly that in the future, there will be a need for recharging stations in the town for electric vehicles. And I don't see that, we're just talking about an engineering study at this point. And I believe the engineering study would cost more than $5,000. Is that correct, Jesus?
If we're doing a study, I'm thinking maybe like a feasibility study. Usually a feasibility study comes with a concept. Similar to what was done with the Bisbee Bikeways path around the pit. They came up with a couple of concepts. So if you're just doing a feasibility study, come up with the concepts and kind of figure out what would need to be done. Yeah, I would think that you're pretty close, somewhere in that $5,000 to $7,000 range.
Well, I think we can get it for less, because I know Ken Budge already did it with a couple of people for free who are engineers, and maybe we could combine the two and get it, cheaper rather than go out to somebody new out there.
Well, at our last meeting, when we were discussing the development of the parking lot for the Higgins Hill lot, Jesus, you said that you really felt like it needed an engineering study.
Sure. So yeah, what I would say, similar to with Walsh, if we paved it, I would for sure want to have that design prepared by a professional engineering firm, because of for the same reasons. We'd be creating a large impermeable area, and we need to plan for that additional runoff that we'll be creating. So that would have been, that's what I intended or meant to say, or to come across to you all. If we're looking at doing something with grading, developing it, but leaving it in a, with a gravel
Natural
curb
state.
parking lot, we aren't changing the impermeability, if that's a word. We aren't changing that, so I would be, I don't think that we need to have a full engineering design. It would be more of a feasibility.
I was up there admiring the new workout station and pool. A beautiful, beautiful facility, really. But that parking lot drops off kind of steeply there, on the downhill side. I'm not sure that maybe we shouldn't put in a guardrail or something.
You mean where the little bridge
That's
is, where
exactly
the
what-
big gully is?
Before you get to the bridge, just the downhill side of that parking lot.
Yeah, you're
Sure,
talking about
exactly.
that. Well, there's a garden for one spot. You're talking about over where you're looking at the church if you go over the hill down.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
down
yeah.
dirty parking lot, yeah. Well,
Somebody, leaves their car in neutral and doesn't set their parking brake, and I think you're off to the races.
part of it, about 100 feet of it has a sort of a drop off, but the rest of it's fairly protected.
Right. Well, it's the part that's unprotected that I
Right,
was
right.
concerned with tonight.
Yeah, nobody's gone up of it yet. I guess that could happen.
Well, we've put a couple of cars into the Mule Gulch here in the last month or two, and you wouldn't think that they could have found their way in there, but they did. And I don't know, is a parking barrier a deal breaker there on that? You think that it's so expensive that we shouldn't put it in?
Well, that again, wouldn't that be something that would come out if we did do the feasibility study? Because the other thing
Exactly.
you could do is literally a bank of dirt, and you'd have you could put those big rocks that Phelps Dodge, Freeport used to give us for free, which they probably still would. You could get and it would be much prettier and much more natural than building some big metal thing that everybody wants to charge you a fortune for. So you get like 10 big rocks 3 feet apart, and wouldn't anybody be going through there? No, those rocks can be donated sometimes by the mining company. Quite often they do that.
That's fine. It was just an observation that I had regarding the future usability of the space. And, anyway, just to increase the safety of it. I mean, I thought that there was kind of a safety concern there, but so we're back to so we're not going to have an engineering study. Perhaps we're going to have a feasibility study.
Well, they're very similar. I mean, they're probably the exact same thing. We'll have an engineer determine how we can develop that, what needs to happen, and some possible concepts.
Can we make the same motion? I mean, now we have two of them again, or maybe we should wait on Higgins Hill and we could put Opera Drive and Higgins together because they're both big. I mean, it's kind of like Higgins is a biggie, and I'd hate for us to get the council, off on a tangent, so I don't know. I don't know whether we should wait, because I do think just a feasibility study, development, make it all natural, get away from paving, since people really don't like that concept. It's all about just developing it, making it natural, putting rocks and gardens and, mowing the weeds that are there. I mean, it could be a nice place, really. And it wouldn't have to be paved, and it could still be a nice place. So maybe we could just either table it, whatever other people think, table it, or make a motion for just a feasibility to develop a future, in the future, we would like to develop Higgins Hill Park. I don't know.
Ben,
Anybody-
is it just windy, or you got something to say?
Yeah, I would say I'd like to learn from some of the comments of the path around the pit, in that I think a lot of the comments were, oh, it's kind of overkill, a little too expensive, and apply that towards this or any parking thing, and maybe try and start with the biggest bang for buck option, which could be, gravel and maximum parking spots or something like that. Just because reading the tea leaves these days seems to point in that direction. Just a suggestion. you know, doing the cheapest, biggest thing we can. Maybe starting with that option and then seeing what the support is for that.
Yeah, I
But-
completely agree with Ben
Yeah.
on that. That we just, I mean, quite frankly, if you just, the city dumped a whole bunch of gravel in there like last year, I think, but they didn't dig the dirt out, they didn't spread it, so they actually made it a much less usable space. So if we could just get somebody to give Public Works again permission to look at the potential to develop it as a natural parking spot that needs just a little bit of attention. And then but no paving, never mention the word paving, quite frankly, for any of these lots right now. I think we should move forward with the natural and the rocking and the beautification. We should think of it more as a beautification and enlargement, because there's a dirt hill that needs to be removed, but that's a 3-hour bulldozer job, which KE&G would do for not much, So it's just the idea of cleaning it up with the thought of developing it in the future type thing, right? But not paving, just improving. Maybe we should just use the word improving and creating additional parking at Higgins Hill Park.
Well, the agenda item is just for the engineering study at this point, and because it was the largest of the 3 parking lots, and as Jesus said at our last meeting, there was a grade to it that had to be considered, I'm on to what you're saying there, Cynthia, that if you start talking about more than one parking lot with the city council, perhaps they're going to become confused about what our intention is. And so.
Right. We don't want to look like we're the paving people, because they've already got that idea. So now we need to back off, tell them with Walsh, we just want it to be natural. We just want it to be cleaned up. We want to develop it into more spaces. That's the key. So I think if we've tabled this one, so I make a motion to table this one along with Opera Drive, so that we can see see if we can succeed with one little one and then move from there,
I think there's
I'll
something for that strategy. Ben, did you say?
Yeah,
you were gonna second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Well, we definitely want them to come back at our next agenda. But
Definitely.
without the engineering, I think, we should just think about it being developed and improved and expanded, but we should never say paving and never say anything else, right?
I think that's what we agreed to tonight.
Right. Stay away from engineers for now till we raise some money. Because the city is really, their new budget, I don't know. What did you tell me though, Jesus? Didn't you say that we're going to have $1 million for streets and infrastructure for projects going forward next year?
That
Right.
is the number that's in our approved preliminary preliminary budget.
Right. So if we get somewhere with Walsh, then we can get somewhere further as a committee when we, when the
Talking
citizens
about the
don't think we're trying to
preliminary
pave all the
budget,
parking lot.
isn't the HERF money and the 1% sales tax already in excess of $1 million?
Yes, so last year we had, because we had the Tombstone Canyon overlay, with the 1% sales tax was budgeted at 1.4 million. And I don't recall the HERF funds, but that was separate. So in this approved preliminary budget, it is the 1% at 1 million, does not include HERF, so there's additional HERF money also.
Okay, that's a good thing. So did we did vote on the tabling of the engineering
Yes.
study for,
Right.
all right, and that was passed.
Yes.
All right, so as I said at the beginning, I think that was our new business that we just went through, and that brings us to the member comments before we close the meeting. Are there any other members that have a comment?
I'd like to add putting on Main Street preparations for monsoon for the next meeting.
Okay. And I have a comment. I would like to meet in person the next time we have a meeting. I understand that the city council has chosen not to meet in person, and I was hoping that that would not keep us from meeting in person at our next meeting.
I can tell you about that because I was on police and fire last night and the city manager is the staff person there. He said, and I quote, "Until the city council meets in person, though they did not mandate that we can't, he was suggesting to police and fire, who also wanted to meet in person, that they need to wait and not go off on their own type thing." I forget what word he used, but it's the idea of that would kind of be a no-no, and nobody really wanted to support it, from the city manager to the city staff, of which we have some here, etc. So you might have to.
During the member comments, we don't really make motions or votes, or we just make comments.
Oh, that's true.
And so that's my comment.
Yeah.
You know, I tuned into that city council meeting, and as I understand, Frank Davis didn't want to meet in person because he was going to go away on vacation this summer.
Well, there you have it.
All right, so are there any staff comments that you want to make before we close the meeting?
I have no comment.
Well, I just want to go back to that. If we were to decide, I mean, I know you were just not making a motion, but if people wanted to meet in person, then there's the problem of the fact that I don't know that we can get permission to do that. And there's no place to meet. But then, just so you know, the police station, police and fire are going to have a work session, and they're going to use the chambers of the police station. So we could fit into the police station also, if you could find the way to have this meeting in person, but I don't know how that happens.
Well, I just wanted to make that comment. I didn't want to, answer questions or, well, how are we limited in the comment phase?
You're doing it right. You're exactly right. You're only supposed to make the comment. There's not supposed to be a discussion.
Oh,
So you
sorry.
made the comment. I've noted that, and then we can work together and figure out whether that can happen or not.
Sure. And how about you, Mr. Pollock? Any staff comments from you?
Well, I'm not staff, so no, I have no comment. Thank you.
I thought you. All right, very good. So we are approaching adjournment here at 6:50. If someone would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second the motion. All in favor of voting for adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Our next meeting is July 22nd, 2021. I assume that is a Thursday. July 22nd is a Thursday. And Jesus, the 4th of July is a Friday. So you will have the day off and you can be at the pool.
Are you sure?
It's a Sunday.
You got to get on the 2021 calendar.
I'll be here for 4th of July. I will be here and I will be working. I don't get the 4th of July off.
Oh, well, bring a pair of swim trunks because you never know.
Sure, I'll be ready for you.
All right, so we are adjourned at 6:50 and the meeting adjourned by, who was the one that made the motion to adjourn?
I did. I think.
Yeah.
Cynthia Conroy. All right, good. Thank you very much, Cynthia.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll get back together on July 22nd, Thursday. Thanks for all your participation.